as I mentioned earlier, the next thing that's going to happen is this week, on September 15th, the newest version of the local report card is going to come out. And so I prepared some very specific talking points from our team that I'm going to present to you. And then, by coincidence, this afternoon, I received the new state superintendent's PowerPoint and some of the comments he embedded in his presentation to the state regarding the report card. So I'd like you to hear both. So if you bear with me as I read, and I'll try not to stray. So, as I said, newest version of the local report card is coming out on the 15th. This report card reflects changes in the state's accountability model that include changes in state tests. It's a third different set of tests in 3 years. Increased performance standards for students to meet proficiency. In other words, the score they have to get on the test to be considered proficient went up. And increased performance standards for districts. 2 years ago, if you exceeded state average on the pass rate, you got the indicator. Then they moved, for this year, it's 80%. And so that target has moved about 15 points in 3 years. So not only do kids have to score higher, we had more kids pass at a higher rate. So it's a double whammy. And there's some new grades for parts of the report card, some of which are interesting. And these changes honestly represent policymakers' efforts to increase standards so that more students can graduate and be college and career ready. That's the policy statement behind it. And I think what you're going to see, I know what you're going to see, is in our region of Central Ohio and across the state, the public's going to see grades and scores that are significantly lower than in past report card releases. You're going to see grades you haven't seen before. And it's clear that the lower grades and lower scores are largely a function of the increased standards and the changes to the assessment system rather than a function of changes in teaching and learning. Our teachers didn't do anything different. Our curriculum isn't any different. Our testing isn't any different. Our kids didn't work less hard last year. The finish line moved, in fairness. That said, in Westerville, we will, as always have, dive into the data and see what we can learn. The initial findings from the new data reinforce the need for what we've already been working toward, and that is building an academic program that meets the unique educational needs of our specific student populations. In other words, no new news. We have some populations of students that are struggling to meet the mark. All the changes didn't tell us anything new. So with that, when the local report card is released, there'll be 6 component grades as follows, and our grades will be as we know them today. Our overall achievement grade will be a C. That's a combination of your performance index and indicators. It's going to be a C, although we exceeded state average in every single one of the tests. And on 11 of them, we exceeded state average by more than 10%. In fact, state average is below state standard. On gap closure, we'll have an F, which will be a function of how students did the year before on old tests against how they did on the new tests. So I'm not sure what that tells us. The value added of progress grade is not posted yet. I hear it will be posted before the report card release, so I don't know what that is. The graduation rate, which is a combination of your 4-year and 5-year rate, will be a B. Our K-3 literacy grade will be an F, although over 99% of our third graders met the third grade reading guarantee. And that's because of the way they do the measurement. It's how they were doing at the start of kindergarten, how they were doing at the end of kindergarten, it's a crazy, that's one, I won't go there. And then the prepared for success measure is a C. And the prepared for success measure kind of approximates our college and career readiness. But what I'm unsure is, how do you set standards? How many of our kids should be college and career ready in high school? How many of our kids should have high AP scores? I don't know what that is. There's no research, but we have a letter grade on it. So C in overall achievement, F in gap closure, progress value added, don't know yet, graduation rate B, K-3 literacy F with a 99% pass rate and third grade reading guarantee, prepared for success C, and overall we exceeded state average in all the tests. That'll be the report card. While I'm disappointed in the results, I want to make it clear that I'm not disappointed in the efforts of our students and our staff, who are the ones having to take the full load of Ohio's ever-changing accountability system, and I am truly proud of their efforts. They work hard. In Westerville, we also know that the community values more than just the state assessment scores. and report card letter grades. Our families have made it clear that they value a well-rounded and robust school experience, one that is more reflected in our quality profile presented here tonight than on the local report card. And so we'll make sure that our continuous improvement efforts that we saw this evening will address measures on the local report card, but they will also demonstrate a more balanced approach that reflects what our local community says it values. Lastly, and this is the important one, as the state begins to develop its plan for the next plan for meeting the newly approved federal guidelines, ESSA guidelines, we hope and ask that Ohio will stabilize the accountability system, which has been subject to several significant changes in the last 3 years, so that local school systems, teachers, students, parents have a clear set of fixed performance targets that remain unchanged for the coming years so we really can understand where we're at and where we're going. Those were my talking points. These were listed in the new state superintendent's key messages as he rolled out the report card. I got these this afternoon. He said, let's remember what we're trying to do, make sure our students are prepared to succeed in a highly competitive global economy. So Ohio raised expectations for students. Those higher expectations reflect what it means to be college and career ready. I'm going to do it, and I shouldn't. My only critique of that statement is I'd like to see some empirical evidence that says that the standards we're focusing on today are clearly, empirically connected to college and career readiness, and not just high standards for the sake of saying high standards. That's where my fear lies. Because the state tests we're using have no strong evidence that they're connected to college and career readiness standards. There's theory about its design, but there's no empirical evidence to say that it does. But we'll go with it. I'll stop there. The report card reflects the higher expectations, and it shows we knew this might happen. There are a lot of changes on the report card, new tests, different indicators, higher benchmarks. Some measures, like the achievement measure, can't be compared to last year. I applaud for the state superintendent for noting that. We shouldn't jump to conclusions. I applaud him for this statement. Schools are improving and will continue to do so. Improvement does not show up clearly given the changes on the report card. Thank you for acknowledging that. As we've seen many times before, teachers, schools, and districts will use the report card to support discussions about district performance and make well-informed decisions about instruction and improvement strategies. There's more to a child's learning than what is measured on the report card. Applaud him for that one. The report card is one, but not the only measure of school and district performance. The report card is a meaningful measure of academic outcomes, and we've got some work to do. We've been through transitions like this before, too many times. We know that Ohio's students, teachers, and schools have what it takes to reach their goal. I agree. We should not let the report cards define us. Report card information should be kept in perspective. The report card should inform us. We need to largely stay the course. I think that's important, and bring some continuity and stability to the system. And then if you're interested, this presentation, there's a whole bunch of stuff on the state website with information about the report card if you're so inclined, or I'm happy to sit down with anyone anytime, go through our data with fine-tooth comb, and take a closer look at the report card. But I think what I liked was I think there's a lot of parallel in the messages that we're developing and we want to share with our community and what the state superintendent said. So I applaud him for putting that out there for superintendents and boards of education communities to understand where we're at. So that's the local report card that we'll see this week. A lot to do. I think we're in the right place. Appreciate the board's support. I appreciate your attention to a longer than normal superintendent's presentation, but it's mid-September. We got to know where we're going. Our staff needs to know where we're going. And so want to get this out there and get us moving so that we make progress. So thanks for the time, and I'm happy to take any questions or comments or suggestions.
So I'm going to break protocol and go first, because the community's really aware of my attitude about the failure of leadership in this state, in the state Department of Education, in the state legislature. Everyone knows where I stand on this subject. I'm going to be very, very frank about this. If the state superintendent, the chair of the education committees of the Senate and the House, in the Ohio House and Ohio Senate, and anybody else could find a champion to meet me on the State House lawn to champion these metrics as being accurate true and value added, I will debate them on that lawn all day long. I'm telling you right now, from a performance and quality standpoint, if this was my outsourced service provider as a corporate leader that was doing performance and quality measures for me, I would fire them all. This is absolutely insane that we continue. We have a state superintendent that says, we moved the bar and we knew we were going to fail. That is nuts. That is absolutely insane that as a leader, we can stand out front and say, we know that we did the measures incorrectly and we know that they're going to fail against them, but we're just going to keep trucking along. I'm just staggered at the incompetence on this subject. And people may take offense to how just viscerally emotional I am about this subject, but I keep bringing it back to the personal level. As a dad, as a Westerville high school parent, my daughter having 4 graduation standards in 4 years, that is completely irresponsible. For any adult to be sitting in a position of leadership and say, that makes sense educationally, they need to go. They just need to go. And I cannot stomach that there's this belief that if we keep grinding out numbers, that eventually the results are going to say something different. Why don't we start with the results first, and then let that lead us to the correct numbers and measures, instead of continuing to put out aspirational figures with no plan from the state. You know, that is why I'm such a strong proponent of what we're doing strategically locally. I think that everybody from the governor to the state superintendent to everybody in the House and the Senate that supports this, everybody in the State Department of Education that supports this, they should be embarrassed. They really should be embarrassed, because as an employer and as a leader, I find this situation really, really frustrating, to the point that I would tell my company not to do business with any of those folks in those departments in this state ever, just simply because this level of incompetence is mind-boggling. So frustrated, angry, disappointed, and none of it is emotion that's relevant to how I feel about this district, this board, this community, our students. How is it that we can continue to work hard, continue to beat the state averages year in and year out, and slip back in the results? That makes no sense. And when it makes no sense, it cannot possibly be the performance that's the issue. It's the numbers and the metrics.
Go ahead. Did you want to?
Yeah, I just had a follow-up question. So you mentioned that the state standards switched from the state average to 80%. Is that going to change again next year?
So here's the story in, trying to get my numbers right. 14-15 was the first year of the new test, Park and Air, which we didn't get the results of until February-ish of the next school year. Remember, there was the delay? And when they were released, around the time of the release was when we were told, hey, the performance standard for the indicators is going to be state average, right? Which for Westerville is a no-brainer. Our kids, whatever test you put in front of them, they're going to outscore state average. So we did great, right? We had hit all those indicators and got an A. Soon after that, they announced that, the state board announced, I believe, that for this school year coming, they wanted to go back to 80% like it used to be, right? So if you go back to the 14-15 school year, those state averages, they weren't all the same for every grade level and every test. Some of them like 55%, 65. So they said, so we're going to get to 80% in the following school year. So for this year we just put in the books, which is the in-between year, they said the indicator mark, the performance target, will be halfway between whatever you're at as an average as a state and 80%. So if it was 60%, then it was 70% to go to 80. So everything this year is 80%. As it stands right now, if we replicate our performance on state tests this year, and we're not only a school district, they'll show this, at 80%, we will not hit a single indicator. We'll probably outdo state average, because as I said, state average this last year was less than the state performance target. And it's going to move And in some cases, as much as 10% is the increase. So it's an interesting scenario. So that's where it is, yes. It goes to 80%, and then I don't know what it is, if it will move again. There's no long-term, that's one of my beefs. I don't know what the long-term policy position is. That's been my conversation with, there's been a lot of conversation in recent weeks with area superintendents about how do we view this, where do we want to go? What I want is a stable system with a policy statement about where we're trying to go that we can work towards. And my biggest critique of the entire system is I'm not sure that the tests we're using have any credible reliability or validity to what we keep saying is college and career readiness. They can't, because if we haven't given the same test in 2 years. I can do it with the ACT. I got a million data points over years. I can't do it with what we got right now. Maybe in the future I will.
Well, I'll speak then, let you go after me. You want to go now?
No, go ahead. Sassy, though.
Okay. I really did. I took a lot of notes, and it's kind of all over the place. Let me tell you what I'm going to ask you, and then I'll tell you how I got there. I want to ask you about, talk to you about elevating our achievement expectations through offerings like AB, IP, ABC, Ds, you know what I mean, AP, IB. Our minority achievement, when we talk, that's kind of that strand, raising that. And I think tangent to that, elevating our offerings in music and art and other elective excellence. Here's how I got there. You understand what I'm saying? So that's what I want to talk to you about. Like, where's our focus there? Here's how I got there. I really appreciate you talking about that this is not a simple system. We're not punching out widgets. First thing I thought of was Point View and like this tremendous job that Mr. LaRose and his team did in following this trail that kept getting bumped off during the summer and then coming back a little bit more. And then that he and his team had to work with the community's expectations. You'll see where I'm going, I think. Community's expectations was excellent, safe, warm, dry, inspiring facility, and we want it open before school. And it kept getting bumped off, but we did. That was a high expectation. I guess I just want to say I am not afraid of high expectations. The other piece that brought me to, okay, how are we elevating academic excellence through these acronyms and through music, art, et cetera, magnet and offerings, that kind of thing, is the community acted as, in 13, right? Wasn't it fall of 13? The community acted as the thermostat. Here's what we want the temperature of the district to be. We are now trying to act as, or put in places, the thermometer. Okay, now we can measure it by degrees. Okay? Okay. That took me to, I'm almost done, that took me to, believe it or not, the social emotional well-being piece. And I thought about this when I was thinking about the state piece, because the state piece, and you said this, I'm just re-emphasizing, the state piece says nothing about the visceral soul core of the children and the teachers. Okay, so, but we have to tend to them. And I would contend, it's just my contention, I think that when you challenge students to rise their to rise to a new level. I think socially, emotionally, they begin to grow. And I obviously meaning not just intellectually. Okay, so I put all of that together. Okay, this thermometer, thermostat, it's not just a system where you can just punch out some widgets. Okay, what are one of the ways, because I'm only talking about one of the ways, we raise the level of capacity to the best of their ability, and every kid has different abilities. But raise them all academic achievement. So I'm zeroed in now. If I'm personally saying one of the benchmarks is raising the expectations, how are we raising the expectations, bringing more people into the APs and the IBs and minority achievement? And I know Cynthia's doing tremendous stuff out there, and I would contend the right brain, music, art, and just don't want to talk about middle school, but all through. So that's my blah. You understand? I don't have a finely tuned question. My gut is saying, what are we doing for that particular area? How does, maybe better stated for our discussion, how are our achievements being measured district-wide, building-wide?
I think, if I understand, and this kind of reflects what Mr. Bird said about tests, right? If you simply say to a 13-year-old, it's going to be harder, right? That's not motivating, right? The people we've worked hardest for in our lives, whatever the task was, were people we had a relationship with and a commitment to, that we didn't want to disappoint, that we wanted to impress, that we felt were going to bring the resources to us, right? And that doesn't matter if it's a staff member or a student. That's the condition. So we talk about in Westerville where you belong. And that's not trite and simple for me. That's deep and meaningful. When a kid walks into Point View Elementary or any of our schools, first thing I want them to feel is, this is a place where I feel like I belong. Because if I feel like I belong here and people want me here, I'm more willing to engage and have a relationship and work hard for them. Let's take a classroom teacher who teaches an advanced placement course. I'll stay away from specific names, whose approach is a where you belong approach. I want you in my class. I know you've never taken one before. I know you haven't done an honors class. And this is going to be hard for you, but I want you in here. I want you in this class because I think I can help you and I can stretch you and I can make you better prepared. A teacher who approaches you with that, you're going to take the risk. Side that with policy. What are our policy statements regarding this one? We had this discussion the other day as part of our conversations about AP and IB. And schedule changes, rules on schedule changes, who can get into class, who can't get into class. Those are all policy statements that either say, we're about you getting access and supporting you, or we're about selecting and sorting. And more that attitude and our value statements about what we want from kids have to reflect that piece. So we don't want to hold the door back on those things. We want to open those doors up. And the risk is people saying, ooh, you're going to dilute those classes or you're going to set kids up for failure. But policy can help that. And I can be concrete in that. I'll do my best experience. I apologize for doing that. As we worked on increasing our AP enrollment, we added courses, we changed enrollment patterns, we got kids interested in it, we got parents interested in it, and we looked at some policy stuff. One of them was our add-drop policy, where if a kid got into the first or second week of school and all of a sudden felt they're in over their head and they want to drop the AP class, and so we developed an add-drop policy that says we're not going to consider add-drop until interim. Because we found sticker shock, first week, I'm on out. hey, let's ride it out to interim, see where we're at. And they never came back. They rarely came back and said, no, really, I need to be out. And we changed our add drop policy so that if you were failing at the point you petitioned add drop, we let you out, and we didn't stick you with the grade. We double weighted second marking period. I want you to take a risk. If that's your risk, I want you to take a risk. We develop a pass-fail policy for elective courses for kids. And I'm not proposing these, I'm just giving you, these are conceptually the conversation. We have pass-fail policy in which we said a student could petition to take a course pass-fail up to interim, first marking period, and could revert to graded status by as late as interim, fourth marking period. That's a policy that's designed to say to a kid, you want to take a risk? Come on, let's go for it. Now, F is a different story, but you know, we're willing to work with you if that's where you want to step. And it's that kind of approach that I think we want to build as a system to say this is where we want to go, regardless of who we are as a kid. And the work we're going to do with Lead Higher, and we'll do some reports on that secondary grant piece, really gets at that work in a very, very detailed fashion, using some data that's going to be really powerful. And I've watched our building principals, our secondary building principals, get excited about it. And the conversation's already started at the middle school around, well, if we're taking the lid off high school, if that's what we're trying to do, how do we do that? Because I heard a middle school principal say this. Some of our policies and practices as early as sixth grade sort and select kids, and they never get an opportunity to get out of that track. And then what you're telling me, high school, is in 9th and 10th grade, you're going to start talking to kids about this curriculum, and we've spent 3 years telling them you can't get in the door, right? And so that energy, that thinking starts to happen. And again, where you belong. We want you in the highest end curriculum we can do. We need you to have transcripted curriculum that says you are ready for a career, you are ready for college. You have your degree, you have your associate's degree, you have your industry credential, you've taken 3 AP classes, you've taken IB classes. I'll share with you a quick story. I was on the field at Central's game second half. They were doing, you may have seen me out there, they were doing the little extra point kick. I was talking to 2 female students who were giving me, in this animated fashion, how excited they were to be in College Credit Plus. Because they're getting this college-like experience that they hadn't had before, and that the work was right on par with where they want to be. They didn't do AP and IB, but this was their sweet spot for them. And what they were learning about themselves as students and how, and this is 2 seniors in September telling me how this helped them. So, you know, we need to continue doing those things. And the other emotional pieces are whether or not you're connected to music and connected to art, world language, if it's an extracurricular activity we have, whatever we gotta surround kids with all kinds of opportunities to make school an exciting place to be as much as possible. Not all of it's gonna be exciting, not all of it's gonna be great. But better be enough in there to keep your interest so that you'll do these things. So that's how I see it.
It's great. Thank you for answering the question I tried to ask. No, that was very helpful. The only other piece I have is I want to pick up on your cooking analogy, that we need chefs. I tried to write down that we need chefs to contextualize, this is my wording, we need chefs to contextualize the taste to the needs and the culture of that particular building. Seeking input from teachers, department heads, et cetera. I just want to, we can figure out how to maybe do a metric measurement here. I'm not quite sure how. I have to look at the district goals again and how those will be fleshed out into the schools. But my concern is, and that's the strongest word I'll use because it's not more than that. My concern is that this really trickle into the frontline troops of teachers and department heads that say, let's be as creative and, I hate to use the phrase, outside the box thinking as we can, so that we can create a whole new middle school or elementary school or high school environment, so that not everything is going to be exciting in school. I mean, I get that, but I I like that idea that we're going to help them. Let me just stop talking and cut right to it. We're going to allow the teachers and department heads to be the chefs that we say they are. If this is not working, then come to us with a better way of doing it. Give us some proof for the pudding that that's going to be a better way. I love the 2 steps away thing, not more than 2 moves away, sorry. I play chess. Not well. I play chess. I try to think a couple moves ahead. That's what we're asking them to do. And I hope, I believe, but I want to honor it. I hope that we will work very hard with our administrators and say, work with your chefs and frontline troops. Let them convince you that this is a better way. But let's not just do words on a paper. Let's make it deep and meaningful and tough and hard, and in about 5 years, really good.
Well, Tracy, do you have more?
Sorry. Okay, so I'm kind of talking to you. Thank you for taking the high road, but I'm still mad. I'm still mad because a C, our grade is a C. So anyone moving into this community, right, anyone in private school, they're gonna go online, they're gonna look at the C, we're defined by a C. All the hard work our teachers, our staff has put in, it's not reflected. And we continue to let the state, and I'm looking at my partners here, take advantage of this. It's baloney.
Yeah.
It's bullshit. It's just, I'm sorry, but it makes me so mad because we need to do something. They continue to take our money for charters.
Mhm.
These schools are not held accountable. They don't have the same measures as we do. We need to do something. So I would say, as legislative liaison, let's put together a plan. I'm not just joking. Let's go down there. Let's know we're done.
Yeah.
We're done.
No, I think that that's exactly the right suggestion and the direction that we need to take it. It goes beyond the charter schools. We're capped on what's returned from the income taxes that are collected from this city for our school district. They don't give us all of our money that they collect from our own citizens that are supposed to be distributed to us for educational funds, and they only give us back part of it. And then they give us these standards that have no bearing in reality. And I gotta take a second here. So I want to tie this up with just a basic thought experiment. One of my heroes, Einstein. You know, both of the theories of relativity came from a thought experiment. That's what he called them, right? And I want to think about this for just a second, because I want to divest this from corporate side, right, for just a second. And there's tons of industries that collect volumes of data that's available for them for analysis that they use with precision to make improvements to their systems. Aerospace, manufacturing, cancer research, you name it. Well, let's talk about the Ohio Department of Transportation for just a second. Let's make it a state level thing, right? So every year, because we have all the numbers for decades, we know almost exactly how many people will be killed in car collisions. Almost exactly, every single year. And on top of that, we know all the different levers that can be pushed or moved to reduce that number, right? Sobriety checks, seatbelts. To this day, depending upon the state that you live in, 13 to 17% of people still don't wear a seatbelt every time they get into a car, and it is still the single deciding factor that keeps them from dying, right? And if you told them the morning that they got up that they were going to be in a car accident, 100% of them would put a seatbelt on, right? You can make those changes and those improvements. So think of the Ohio Department of Transportation, and they have this percentage of people that die every year out of all drivers on the roads. And in order to make that number go down, they decide with all of this data and all of these things that we know that will make a successful outcome, what we're going to do is we're just going to lower the percentage and say that fewer people are going to die. That's all that we're going to do. And when that number isn't met, we're going to lower the percentage of people that are going to die in a fatality, as a fatality in a car accident again. without doing any of those things to fix it. We're just going to keep changing the number, and we're going to hope for a better outcome. That's how insane this math is, right? And I won't take the high road on this. I am angry about this. Angry to the point that I have no problems with us putting this together and going down to the State House. Angry to the point that I have no problems debating, having conversations, dialoguing about how stupid this entire process is. And now on top of it, the insult that's added to our community, our taxpayers, are contributing not just to maintain this absurdity at the state level, but are contributing and not getting those dollars returned back to their community. How can anybody that is a member of this community be satisfied with that? That is just wrong. It is unfair, it is inappropriate, and it needs to be changed, right? And what's really, really frustrating is all the information that we need to drive improvements is at our fingertips collectively in this state, in these school districts, and we're ignoring it and just saying, we're going to set a new bar, we're just going to move the target 50 feet down the road and still expect everybody to hit it. And it's completely unrealistic, right? It's frustrating. I don't want to belabor the topic anymore. We've really been hammering it. I agree. It's past time for the top 10, 12, 15 school districts in this state to show that we own the majority of voters in the state, in the boundaries of our school districts, and say enough is enough of this garbage. So I agree. All right. Any additional topics, subjects, issues, limericks?
Just a big thank you to you and the team for just a tremendous amount of work that just these presentations put out. And I'm excited to see the results come in over the next few years as this gets put out and put meat on the bones.
I appreciate that. I think our biggest lift that I'm looking towards is, regardless of all of this, got kids in the system today whose outcomes and ultimately graduation is embedded in all this. And there's 3 years of high school students sitting in our buildings today that are subject to all of this. And what they need to understand, and their parents need to understand, is regardless of whatever those new measures said, the kids are all right. The kids are all right. They're smart kids. They're working hard. This obligation to get a system in place so they can be successful against whatever these measures are is where we got to be. And I know our staff is committed to that, and we'll put our head down and grind it out and see where it goes. So we'll continue. I can tell you that the area superintendents have been very organized in their discussions on this and laying out where we want to be, because I think there might be one A for achievement in the area. Everybody else is BC. Who's the A? I think Olentangy is an A. Everybody else is BC. And even, and I'm not speaking of Illinois, there isn't a school district that when they look at their performance isn't going to see a decline. They may not have fell below the indicator standard, but they had a decline in performance. And now that the indicator standard goes up, right, it's going to change. So some of them that may do really well on this report card, as they stare at the 80% mark, might see a slip in their performance that require conversation with their community too about what's going on. So nobody feels immune. Everybody feels same. So appreciate the board's commitment to it, and we look forward to moving this forward and getting our goals in place and meeting our community's needs.
All right. John, thank you very much. I really do appreciate it. I know it's a highly charged topic.